guys are still getting stuff or want to get some coffee during the presentation, that's more than fine. That's the idea. So we're going to introduce you to Marci Penner. She's one of the neatest people I've ever met. She's a huge rural advocate. She's been to every community in the state of Kansas, right? Every community. She's written a couple guidebooks for the state. If this lady knows exactly what works in rural communities. I mean, she's seen everything. She sees what works. She sees what doesn't work. So she's going to have a couple of tips for everybody about what works in small communities. So I'll give you guys Marci.
First, I want to thank my team, Jean and Joel and David. My assistant director usually comes with me and does all the technical stuff, and she threw her back out today, so I came all nervous and everything, and rightfully so, because when I tried to set it up, it didn't work. So Jean stood in, and David and Joel, so thank you. And I want to tell you how fortunate I think you are for getting Joey on board here. I want to hand it to Joel for finding such a good guy to transition to. And I met Joey a year or so ago in Hutch, and his wife. Is that right? No?
Yes.
Yes.
Happily.
It's on TV, folks. It's being recorded. And anyway, just thought they had great energy, so I think they'll be a major plus for you here, and I'm glad for you. 2 months ago, my dad died. And the morning of his service, I got in the pickup. We had loaded it with extra chairs. And I was the first one to go to the service, which was going to be held at the community building. It was a cold day. It had been beautiful until that day, and it was really cold, really cold. I get to the edge of town, almost to the business district, and I get a big, fat, flat tire. And it was cold. I was anxious for the day, and I just sat there and calmed myself and thought a little bit, and then I knew it was going to be okay. I called the Inman Irrigation boys that are located a mile down from our house, and I told them my predicament, and they said, "We'll be there." And they were there within a couple of minutes, and while they unloaded chairs and loaded them into their truck, I needed to get to the building. So I walked a few blocks to the grocery store, and I walked in and I said, and I'm sure I looked a little frantic, I said, "I need a ride." And Karen in the meat department threw off her apron, grabbed her keys, hollered to the front, "I'll be right back." And Karen drove me to the building. And that's why I love small towns. You know, we could have a ton of examples about that. I remember somebody told me a story once about the Inman Lumberyard when we were still lucky enough to have it. It was a weekend, and they needed a couple of boards for their project. And it was after the lumberyard had closed, and they couldn't find any of the owners. So they climbed the fence, got the boards, threw them over, and on Monday, they went in and paid the bill. And of course, that was perfectly okay. And then one other story, we were in Marquette doing research for our guidebook. We're in the midst of going to every town in the state. We walked into the Piper Food Store in Marquette, and there's Steve at the front in his apron, his big self, holding a little baby. They had just had a grandbaby. And he's holding it and just loving on it, and some customer comes up and needs something. So he gives the baby to the next customer in line, and he goes off to, do the task and get whatever somebody needed. And me and Wendy are up there talking to the customer with the baby, and we're having a great time. And that's what a small town is all about. And we run into that everywhere we go. And so what I want to say to you is, I truly believe that a community that likes each other, that loves each other, that's cohesive, can rally against any challenge that comes its way. Even like this big box thing. If you are together as a community, you'll be fine. I mean, there's certain things we can do to sharpen up what we need to do for the challenge, but a community that gets along can certainly make things happen. I asked this funny little story, the name of our service station in Inman where we get our oil changed and tires, it's called Inman Service. But the I and the N fell off of the sign, so it's just man service. And we told Merle, don't put the I and N back on because this would be a great guidebook entry. So just, I don't know what he'll do, but we always joke about going to man service. And so he told me once that one thing that really bothers him is when people go to a big box store to get their tires, and then maybe they weren't good quality or something, and they come to him and want him to solve the issue. And the other story, we have a great appliance store, Jim's Appliance. And it's the same thing. People go to a box store to buy an appliance, and then they need it serviced, and they're upset because it's not working. They come to Jim's, you know, and it's like Jim's is there to save the day, but what we need to do is think about going there first. We love the service small towns give, but after I heard those stories and heard some grocery store stories, I totally changed my habits. And I think that's something Joey can do, is help share those stories so that we really understand what retailers go through. Raise your hand if you're here as a business person. Is there anyone here just as a customer? Now, really, all of us are customers, right? And if we're not, we should think about that. We all should be customers. We all should be customers. So, as I said, I'm lucky enough to be on my second journey to every town in the state. And so we see a lot of different perspectives. And what I'm going to share here are just some 8 must-dos that we probably all know. But I want to challenge each of you to think about which one of these could you do a little better. And maybe which one do you do great, but which one could you do a little better maybe. This is a sign I saw in Grainfield, or was it Grinnell? I think it was Grinnell. It's Grainfield. You know, Go County, right? And I just loved it. I think the messaging we do sometimes is really important. And the previous owner maybe hadn't given me that same feeling, but when this guy bought it, he started, I mean, you could just tell that he loves being in business in Grainfield, Kansas, and you know, small business is a big deal. And we need to realize that and hang together about that. So I'm going to give the signal to my guy, Gene.
Hey, I've never been a guy before.
Give him the signal sooner. Yeah. Give him a 10-second signal advance. Go, Gene. Okay. Cleanliness, obvious. Doesn't take a brain surgeon to know that's important, but whether it's your window, the sidewalk in front, the store itself, it makes a difference. So here's Haviland Hardware and Convenience Store. Now, how clean will a hardware and convenience store be where I'm going to be groceries? That's okay. Well, when I walked in there, I mean, it was just spotless. And it was beautiful. And it told me that this owner had pride. that he was going to take care of his products really well, and probably his customers, because he spent a lot of time on cleanliness. And I just really appreciated that. We were in one nameless town, and we asked the people, where should we go eat lunch? Oh, they all said this place. We went there, and it is not going in the guidebook. It was so dirty, it just gave me the willies. You know, I don't even know how people can eat there or work there. Let's see what we have next. So there's this place in another nameless town that's famous for having Crown Royal, that's some kind of alcoholic beverage, that comes in a blue sack. And they have these all over the walls, all over the ceilings for years and years. And can you see from where you are how dirty they are? I know. I mean, I could hardly, they're famous for steaks, but to me they're famous for dirt. Now, I know this is going online. They might see this. That would be okay. Maybe they need a little kick because it was just, I felt like dirt was falling on me. And cleanliness is important. All right, number 2. So, we go to Spearville to the restaurant late in the afternoon. And, you know, it's about 2 o'clock, maybe 3, and we're thinking these people they're not gonna want to feed somebody at this time of day. So we go into this Mexican restaurant, and we're the only people. And before we know it, we are in the kitchen, invited, taking pictures of how they make the food, and we didn't tell them we were hungry. And before we know it, they've got food on the table, and they're setting us at this table, and he pulls up a chair right up to the table and with his girls, and just a great example of being friendly. You know, it made us feel like we weren't intruding. He was proud to share his story, and that's going in the guidebook. Not just because he was, well, yeah, he was friendly, it was great food, and it deserves to be in the guidebook. Another place we went was De Palma Antiques in Russell. And they have these bags, they're just shopping bags, but every business, you see all the different, you can't read them, but they're all different businesses that went in to buy those bags. And they're shared stores all over town. And it just made us feel like Russell was a town where the business people got along. And that was really cool. It just made me know they're friendly with each other. Jean. All right. To me, this is maybe the hardest thing to find good staff, and probably the most important. When we go around the state, people say the hardest thing is finding good help. In this case, Mr. English had a leather shop in Horton, and 10 years ago when Luke was in high school, Mr. English found out that Luke was interested in the trade, and he invited Luke to intern, to apprentice with him. And it was just one of those beautiful transition stories where Mr. English was on his way out, and he paved the way for Luke. And Luke then was able to stay in the Horton area, raise a family, keep this old-time kind of shop going, doing a great job. Don't go anywhere, Jean. So, there's a lot of stories I could tell you about staff, and I'm sure a lot of you have those issues. We went into a grocery store one time, one of those were the 2 checkout lines, and right at the front of the store, and one girl's leaning against it like this, and the other one like this, and they're talking to each other. They don't acknowledge that we come in, but I think they did acknowledge that they didn't know us, that we must be from out of town, because they carried on with their gossip so loud that no matter where we were in the store, we heard all this gossip going on. I mean, they just kept going. It was a bad reflection on the store, on the town, and on this help. And you know, I usually say that we can find out in an instant if the town is cohesive by going into the grocery store, if they're lucky enough to have a store, and just asking a question of the clerk. And if that clerk is friendly and has a good attitude about the town, for us, we've found that's usually a good indicator of the whole town. So, but what I want to say is that it is important to train your staff to let them know you have expectations. Pay, that's hard, but you know, if you pay them the lowest, that maybe means that's what you expect out of them. How can you involve them in your operation? Mr. English didn't have to worry at all because Luke was being trained to be part of that business, and he loved it, and it was just great. And we can, you know, when we go in a store, I think I'm coming to friendly, so I wait for some other stories. Oh, well, this is just another guy that apprenticed, just a kid out of high school in a community-owned grocery store in Mineola. She's the manager, and this kid is ecstatic. He apprenticed with the meat guy, learned that butcher trade, and he's like, this is my meat department, you know? He's in charge, and he loves it, and we loved that store by the time we left, because everybody in that store was happy about how it was going as a community-owned store, and they loved it, and we felt that, and we can't wait to tell lots of people about it. Do you recognize this place?
Yes, we do.
Marissa, right?
Right.
So, you know, I love her space because it serves a number of different purposes. And one story I love that she told me, and I'm pretty sure it's true, is pie night, right?
It is.
Pie night. So she's tired by the time pie night comes along. So she allows it to happen. She trusts her employees to run it, as I understand it. She's not there, but it happens. It's a good space for it. She wants to do that for the community, the college kids, others. And what I love, I think if you bring your own plate, you get $1 off or something. Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty darn neat. But whenever we go in there, Marissa's smiling, and she's friendly, and she remembers us. And look at all those spaces. It's really catering to the customer. And, you know, if you're not in business for the customer, you're probably not in the right business. What are, Nancy, it came into your shop and you had some little special, something cool for the customer. I don't know what it is. It doesn't really matter now, but you did something for the customer. And customers like things changed up. They like to know that you're doing things with them in mind. You know all these things, but just remember, it's sort of about you, but it's also really about the customer. And so, you know, it just says it all. We are here to serve you, and the customer's job, you know, this whole thing that we're all talking about, it's not just about a business, it's also about the customer. And it's about how the two of you get together and really appreciate each other. And I just put it in there because I love the Electric City Emporium in Horton, and I love to ring it and get Tom to run down the aisle and find me so. You know, more and more there's community-owned stores, sort of the opposite of some other things. And by the way, if there's 100 units of time in a day, I don't mind using 1 or 2 units to hear what you're against, but I'd really like to use the rest of the 98 units to hear what you're for. Tell me what you're for. And I'm for this. I'm for your stores. And I think what you hear is what you start thinking about. And so if you're always talking about being mad or what you're against, that's what you think about. But if you're talking about what you're for and how you can get the Hillsborough and, is this a Hillsborough thing, or it's kind of everybody, yeah. But anyway, this is just a community-owned store says it all, and this one is in Russell. Signage is really important. It gives you an impression when you walk up. It does say closed, but that was our fault. We were there enough. But otherwise, you know, they had flowers outside and benches and welcome and appropriate or accurate hours. Great place in Stafford. And then someone said, go to the ice cream place in this other town. And this was the sign we saw. And guess what? The place sort of reflected the sign. Now, the only sign that I'm disappointed that's a new sign now is Edna's at Maxville. Has anybody eaten there? That sign looks so bad. It was a bar and grill. It scared me to death. I was never going to go in there. But it was clean as a whistle inside. And I was pretty disappointed when they got a new sign for some reason. But these folks need to get a new sign. Now, this is an advertisement. It isn't. So we're in this town, and someone told us to go to Red's. It's a soda fountain. So we drive up and down the 1.5 blocks of this town. We can't find it anywhere. And then we figure, well, it must be in here. But they didn't put the name of the store anywhere. And you know the reason? Well, everybody in town knows where it is. So, well, do they want out-of-towners to come there too? You know, it's a great out-of-towner destination, but I don't know if they're going to put a sign on there or not, but I'd sure recommend that they do. Okay, we're back to Grinnell, and like Roger was saying, it's the small town stores that support the ball teams and the fire department and everybody else. What I love about what he did was just, he keeps the messaging going. The community comes together at Harvest Market, and you know, it's just a message that's out there, and it's good. It's like, what are you for? It's good to see it, good to hear it. Okay. So the Claflin Golf Course is one of my favorites. And they have all these businesses at the top that, you know, sponsor it. And Bailey's Food Den is one of those, one of my favorite grocery stores in the state. This is their clubhouse. It's out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know how many people go golfing at the Claflin Golf Course. But it doesn't matter, because the locals that do, every time they walk into the clubhouse, they see all those signs. And they've got to feel like the community is really behind me. So it's messaging. How can you show that you're all in this together? Now, maybe what would be cool is if this is a store, you put customer names up there, so the customers get appreciated just like sponsored towns get appreciated. But sometimes we forget to recognize the customers. Gene, you're really getting good at this.
I'm getting better.
I might hire you.
Yeah.
I might hire you. Do you recognize this town? If you wanted to buy furniture, a really unique place to go is Claflin. It's kind of a good and a bad story. There weren't any other businesses, so Miller Furniture bought practically all the businesses in town and put historic facades on the front, and they're either showcase buildings or warehouses. But you drive down Claflin, and it's unique, and it stands out because of how they did things. This might be my favorite new unique place in the state. Union Square in St. Francis. Can you see above the clock and the sign, there's kind of, that's blue sky, because it's just rafters, there's no roof. Can you see that sort of? thought, what? So you walk in the door, and you're just walking into a shelled out building with rafters, but they put their roastery in like a, what do you call those, silver RV, Airstreams, and then they had this other little tin shed, so that's part of the space, and it's just cool. So before we go on to the next slide, I want to recommend that you think about doing cool things. How can you know, you have the college here, how much do you talk to the 21 to 39-year-old power-ups about what they want, you know, and how to either incorporate it in what you have or how to coolify your town, not totally, but so you get all age groups. And this is cool. Not only is it a coffee shop, so here's the inside. They put a little path down, chairs, and they seed bags, you know, hanging from the rafters. So that's, and you come up over there, there's a door to go into the coffee shop. But then this woman, Heather, she decided to make it into a cooler space for an event. This is off their website. So, you know, they hung art on the walls and just made that empty building into a really cool space. And you can tell from the people you even see in this picture how a different age group appreciated that. I mean, all age groups are there, but you don't always see the younger age group everywhere. So that's pretty cool. So St. Francis isn't that far away. It's only in the most northwest county of the state. But I recommend a road trip for all of you. All right, let's see what's behind this door. Yes, you can do it. Social media. Well, the name of her restaurant is The Blonde Girl. It's in Coldwater, and she, it's a blonde brick, nondescript looking building connected to the non-franchise, independently owned motel in Coldwater. And so someone said, you got to go eat at the Blonde Girl Cafe, or the Blonde Grill. Blonde Grill. And we're looking at the building, and it just doesn't look like much. But you go in, and you meet her, and she's very professionally dressed, and the space is just excellent. And you just feel cool. Well, she also has her menu on Facebook. And as a person who writes guidebooks and likes to promote neat businesses around the state, I appreciate if you have a website or a Facebook page, because it's a place to quickly get information. And lots of people want to do that. They want to get it quickly, and it's not hard. And David Vogel is here. He can help you. He runs a web company, but you can figure out how to do a Facebook page. Right, David? Anybody can do that. We shouldn't tell them that anybody can do it and have them all come to you.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. One of my other favorite places to eat in the state is Ad Astra at Strong City. And they do, oh that's okay.
I can go both ways.
Write that down, Joey. News break. You know, you wonder what their menu is. You want to go on a weekend, you just go to the Facebook page. And it really is easy to do. But what I love about restaurants that do this, and the Blonde Grill does it, Swedish Crown does it, lots of places do it, probably here too, you can just access information very easily when you're open, all sorts of things. And we've got to do this social media thing, folks. Band together, do it, because it will make a difference. It's part of that customer service. And you can put lots of pictures on it and put pictures of customers on it and do all sorts of things like that.
I think it also makes the business more accessible to people who maybe don't want to call or come in, but they can send you a message on Facebook.
Exactly. They can send a message, they maybe can see your sales. Nancy, I took a picture in your place and I put it on an e-blast. And I don't know if anybody called you, but I heard lots of people say, I want that dress. And it was because it was out there on an e-blast or Facebook or something. They would have never known that they had the perfect dress for them at Nancy's shop. But because of social media, they found out. Okay, so we're done with the 8 must-dos, and I'm almost done. But stretch for ideas. Art is always good. Murals or something colorful, things that look good. I like Marissa's sandwich board that she usually has out. But how can you, if I were you, I'd really, whatever business you have, I would put a small group of power-ups. I'd get a small group of power-ups to come in, maybe with others. Power-ups are 21 to 39s who are rural by choice. And I'd ask them to come in and just help me think about my store. What could I do differently? What am I doing good? What's your thoughts? They love to be asked. They don't like to always be told, here's a committee seat for you. Now do it the way we've always done it. We need you to do that. That's a great way to keep things going stagnant. You want to perk this place up? Ask them, what are your ideas? What are you thinking? How can we help you achieve that? How can you help us? To me, the Power Up movement is not just about the young people. It's about how focusing and hearing young ideas can help all of us create a better community. So stretch for ideas. Have you thought about doing a group standard, a group small business standard? These are things we want to achieve as small towns, and maybe it's a list of expectations, or there's got to be a cool way to do it. But you know how if you have employees and they don't know what your expectations are, then they just will be as square one as they can be. But if you tell them, these are my expectations of you, I need you to rise and do it great because it'll help this store and it'll help you and all that. So how can you figure out some group standards? Or I don't know. But there's tons of ideas out there. Let's see if we're on the last slide yet. Our town, we care. I mean, doesn't that just say it all? It's our town. You hope people come in and shop or whatever, but this is your town. Is it worth fighting for? Is it worth changing your shopping habits or improving them or doing them more often or whatever? And do you care? Do people care? And if they do care, how can Joey translate that into a little blurb in the paper or something online? We are often what we hear. Messages make a difference. And do you want to hear those 2 units of what you're against, or do you want to be inspired by those 98 units of what we can be, of who we are, what we want to be? And Jean, I think on that note, I should probably stop. So, thank you, Jean. Thanks for having me here.